Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans, for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Tonight, as always, we're coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. That'll be our host this evening, Rob Fawcett, and tonight we'll be looking back at the dismal performance of Tuesday against Bruges before turning our attention to the weekend's fixture against St Mirren. But before I do that, I'd encourage you to visit the Gersnet website. Not only do we have our main website with a host of quality articles and online museum, but it also hosts our popular forums, which are a great place to keep up to date with the latest Rangers news and discussion. Tonight, as always, we're live on YouTube, and we'd ask that you continue to spread the word amongst your friends and family, share the pod on social media, subscribe to the channel, as well as stop by the forums and join in the chat there too. Now, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporters of Rangers and Gersnet for a number of years, and we are delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They've also got a stunning executive lounge in the main stand at Ibrox. And for more information on that, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, joining me this evening is the man who is looking very pretty in pink, Mr. Stewart Weir. How are you doing, Stewart?
Yes, I'm doing well, Rob. I think maybe we should just keep the next 27 minutes going with more adverts for Forrest Engineering. I think you've excelled in them. And look forward to the St Mirren game, and good night, and see you all next week.
If only it was that simple, mate. Unfortunately, we have to go through the pain of reliving the game against Bruges before we even get to talking about incomings, outgoings, and the game against St Mirren. I guess we'll just rip the plaster off and go straight into it, mate. The starting lineup, I think the only surprise for me was Megoma coming in, obviously just after signing on loan for Brentford, and we kind of lined up with Butland, Megoma, Suter, Jigga and Tav at the back, Raskin, Rothwell and Diamandi in the middle, and Danilo leading the line alongside Ant-Man and Gassama. Now, personally, I was quite pleased with that lineup because I thought Raskin and Rothwell might switch positions, or even actually, God forbid, Martin might change his system and style a little bit and have both Raskin and Rothwell playing a little bit deeper. It didn't quite work like that. We did get Raskin in the six, but Rothwell playing a little bit more advanced. What was your view when you saw the lineup and how you were hoping that we were actually going to set up for this game?
There's a great quote in sport about Mike Tyson, who said, everybody's got a plan until somebody punches them in the face. And that, after approximately a minute and so many seconds, was exactly how I felt that night was going to go. You looked at the team, he could do this, they could do that, they might pair up, we might get something out of them. Nothing. The big X appeared in the pitch. No, that's the wrong answer. Would you like to consult the rest of your family and see what might happen? It was an abysmal start, a shocking start, and all the things you hope to see, as you said there, Rob, and you're not wrong. You almost play fantasy football in your head when you look at games like this, how it might pan out and how it might play out. Bookmakers make a fortune because of that, but that's another story entirely. But it's you went into that game. I don't think anybody underestimated Bruges. You'd have to have not watched European football for the last couple of years to be dismissive of Bruges or overhype Rangers' chances. But you could not make a start like that against anyone. The one kind of consolation, a bit of positivity I was trying to take was, I remember Dick Advocaat's first game when Rangers were 3-0 down to Shelbourne, and I was sitting in Cardiff watching Celtic that night against some unknown Welsh team, Cabletel, watching that game, and it kept 1-0 to Shelbourne, 2-0 to Shelbourne, 3-0 to Shelbourne. And you're thinking, what's happening here? But they had the players to who could give themselves a shake and say, right, we need to produce here.
Mhm.
Now that we've got to know each other in the first 45 minutes, Advocat who tore everybody, even the guy who just spent, 5, 6, 7 million on, tore them off a strip as well, and Rangers get the job done. There was nothing like that, and I know you've touched on the lineup there. I mean, the two wide players. I mean, they'd be as well sitting in either of the stands, either in the government stand or sitting in the main stand when the first half was going on, because the game didn't really involve them.
Mm.
But the whole thing, and I want to touch upon this quite early. There was not a Rangers fan, I don't think, in that stadium or who had seen Rangers in the previous matches this term that did not think that was a result or a scoreline or a performance that could happen at any time.
Mhm.
There were enough giveaways, enough telltales to say this Rangers team are not coherent in any way, shape, or form, and the manager does not evidently know his best starting lineup. Not in a million years did he know his best starting lineup. He's just swapping players for the sake he swapped them. How many left backs have Rangers had so far this season? 3, sometimes, I think maybe even 4 if you count about somebody just filling in there. And the biggest, the most damning comment of the lot was from Nicky Hayne, the Bruges manager, who basically said, we knew where the spaces were.
Yeah.
Now, every Rangers fan knew where the spaces were because they've been watching Rangers, just get away with it, be it against Motherwell, be it against Dundee, be it in the European matches, and they knew where the failings were. The only man that seemed to have not a clue about how to either line up or how to change things, plan A, I only have a plan A, sign the dugout, was Russell Martin. And, and I know people will say, well, it's early days. It is not early days when you are relying on people who cannot do the basics. You're wheeling guys in here on loan. There's some supporters of other clubs didn't even know these guys were players until they joined Rangers in the last 3 weeks. And I just don't see how you manage to get any sort of cohesion or any kind of coherent play when you're chopping and changing players and bringing guys in. You're the back four the other night there. You had 3 guys who are all on loan.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to lay down their lives? Are they going to really push it to the nth degree to save the team when the fans are booing at them? I don't think so.
Mm. No, I mean, it's an interesting point, and I think before we touch on the loan player bit, I think one of the things that I was really disappointed in that first half was the lack of leadership on the pitch, and it's something I think we as a club have struggled with for the last few seasons. Suter had the armband, but I didn't once see him trying to G folks up or get them going after even the second or third goals went in. It was what Makoma, who was what I don't know, I think he's 19, that was one of the first players that I saw actually having a go at people on the pitch, telling them where to be. And for me, that's absolutely criminal. Suter's meant to be a leader and a blood and guts defender, but at some point you've got to take responsibility on the pitch, and I think that's the frustrating thing with the way that we started the game. We can have concerns about Martin's style of play and the fact that we do sit wide open, but when you effectively chuck 2 goals in the back of the net to start with, you've got no bloody hope of trying to then salvage a result. And people will point to the second half being a bit of an improvement. It was only an improvement because Bruges had the job done in the first half.
That's right. It's a bit like saying the weather is a bit of an improvement now that the tornado has died down a bit and we've only got a flood. It's. I mean, I mentioned to you and Stewart off air before we come on. One of my mates sent me a text message. The first goal, he said that Jigger looked like a 48-year-old who had just been picked up on the way to a Sunday league match when they didn't have enough players. Because basically he started chasing the guy and then went, I don't think I can be bothered. I'll leave it to my goalkeeper, who's just been picked up from a wedding reception where he's been drinking all night, and he just, this ball might bounce a bit. Oh no, what do I do now? And the guy basically chips it in from 40 odd yards. I mean, you can't. I know you cannot legislate for goals like that, but surely you must be picking players that actually know how to play the game. In the first instance, that was the most basic of basic errors multiplied by 2. And you mentioned Suter there. I did laugh. I laughed at Suter running at an angle to give Jigger an option. If he didn't want to play it back to Butland, he could knock it out to the side there. And Suter took up a position, a kind of left centre back, left back position to give him the option, and then turned round only to see the ball going flying into his own net. I mean, you see, look at amazement as if to say, was there a miss there? You know, 1 minute I'm waiting for a pass, next minute is the back of the net. The second goal was just weak defending, and you know, people. I remember Rangers signing Marvin Andrews. Well, he's not very skillful. No, but he used to head the ball further than I went on holiday. You knew the ball was going to get cleared, or somebody was going to put their boot through it and clear the ball. There is no discipline in how to defend, and that's killing Rangers. What's killing Rangers just now are players that don't look as if they can be arsed. A manager who still looks like the geography teacher who's been given the headmaster's job, and basic errors that will kill you in any level of football.
And I think the set piece thing is a real concern for the majority of fans, to be honest, because we've seen it against Dundee. You know, they obviously hit the post and scored for one. You had the comical defending of Dowell, who wasn't even watching the ball. He was more interested in trying to wrestle with the Alloa player, who then obviously gets the head on it and it comes back out and they score for that. I think they're basics that you've got to get right. And there was a number of times in that first half where Bruges were changing up the corner routine, but regardless of how they played the corner, whether it was short, whether it was to the edge of the box, they always had 2 or 3 men spare, and they looked quite dangerous from the corners. And you know, even the goal, it wasn't as if it was a clean strike. He's kind of almost just half sclaffed it with the side of his foot. It's bounced through a bit and Suter in into the back of the net, and you at some point players have got to take responsibility on the pitch for doing the basics about getting close to a man and not giving them space.
Yeah.
And this is why I hate fucking zonal marking. It's like, pick a man, stick with him.
So what did Rangers play? The Rangers play, now I'll ask you, what did they play? What system did they play?
I would say it's zonal marking looking at it at the moment at the back, isn't it? It's like, but it leaves you so wide open.
Anybody I know of any level of football will tell you if you use or you utilize zonal marking, you only do it in certain areas with certain players. You have always got a couple of guys that go and do the head hunting. They go and go for the ball. It is their sole purpose in life to put their head on the ball. The rest of them can zone mark and stop people getting into that area. But the other guys, they go where the ball is. And if you think back, and this was explained to me, Walter Smith explained this, Dick Advocat explained it. You have certain players that will take up a certain position to stop people coming into that zone, hence the name zonal marking. And you've still got guys that actually get their eyes on the ball and make sure they challenge for it. You think the amount of headers that Richard Gough got, or Lorenzo Amoruso got, or John Brown got over a period of time. You know, I mentioned them earlier on there. Marvin Andrews, if it had been an Olympic sport, he'd have been a gold medal winner, because that's what he did. He cleared these lines. Whereas just now, it's like, well, I'll bounce about here and look quite busy, and if it doesn't hit me, I'll hit somebody else, and it's their job to get rid of it. No, put your name on it, put your mark on it. You'll give the guys a call as to who you're picking up. I think it's shameful. It's shameful that not just the fact they can't do the job, it's shameful they've actually got a job currently at Rangers. because it's almost like you're picking a team where they haven't been formally introduced to each other, or they've been playing netball before they actually came to Ibrox and don't know how to play football. It is absolutely garbage.
And I think the other thing that didn't really help us in that first half was actually how disjointed the press was. Again, I'm sitting in the stand watching it, and you've maybe got one or two people who are trying to make an attempt to close down a player in space, but then it was just so easy for Bruges to play through us. There was always space on the flanks, and it was the same in the friendly against them, where a switch of play, all of a sudden they would have two or three people,
Yeah.
as an overload attacking our goal, and that ultimately looks like a system problem because you can't afford to give good teams or any team that sort of space on a pitch, and you certainly can't afford to pest them with one or two members of the team. You've got to do it as a unit, or you don't do it at all because it just leaves you vulnerable at that point.
The press was explained to me by various coaches, but one in particular. People talk about you pressing from the front. You don't actually press from the front. You actually press from your defensive midfield players. And they're the guys that can gauge who is around them, who's in a dangerous position. And they're the guys that give the call. When they run past you, you go with them. And that's how you shut people down. You don't shut, being the one striker or a winger, you can shut guys down, but they tend to play through you around you. If you're actually pressing from deeper, you squeeze the other team up. You don't give them any space to play in, and there's also more of you actually pressing on the ball. And Rangers seem to be doing it like this would be a good time to press. When that's you're sitting in the stands screaming, "No, it's not. No, they've got an overload wide left or a wide right, or there's two guys just running through the middle." You do not press now because you can't pick up the runners. And I am at a loss as to even guess what these guys are being told in training or in coaching sessions about what to do. It looks as if they've been told one thing, and either they're getting out and just playing for themselves and can't take on board what they're being told, or they've been told something that evidently doesn't work. And I will say at this moment in time, the record shows whatever Russell Martin tells his teams what to do, it is not working.
Yeah, I think he alluded to some of that in the post match presser, didn't he? Because he was like, you give away those two early goals, and the players just abandoned all the instruction we'd given them. But I think it is an interesting point because Pilsen at home, I think, is the 60 minutes of football that I think we've seen that's probably been the best.
Yeah.
And you would expect the team to then be able to build off that. And I think that's the frustration for a lot of fans is that take away people's personal opinions of Martin and him getting the job. I wasn't a big fan of him getting appointed, but I wanted to get behind him and support him. Even people like me are beginning to question things a little bit now because we seem to be regressing as a team rather than using that Pilsen performance as something you could build on and seeing more of that good play and the kind of fast paced attacking. I think a lot of the problems that we've got as well is that a few of the last games that I've noticed is we seem to be very, very static as a team in the attacking third. We have five people in the final third. They just stand in their position and they aren't dropping deep to create space for other people to run into, which doesn't then give us options. And I think whether that is a system problem or a player problem, I don't know who needs to take responsibility for that, but surely players on a pitch know that if they stand still, it's going to be easier for their opposition number to mark them.
I think it's an ability problem.
Yeah.
I think because what's happening is you are that 45 minutes against Pilsen. I said on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that. I don't, but anyway, it's. I said, right, they did it for one half. Now try it for two halves, or even better, two games, and they've not been able to do that.
No.
And what happens is you've got guys making moves up front or making moves in the midfield, But if you've got defenders that think, oh, I can't pass that ball forward because I might lose possession, so we'll just make 256 passes along the back four to see if we can break this other team down, and it doesn't happen. You know, I mean, Van Bronckhorst was castigated because of the horseshoe, but at least they actually went down the sides or prodded the sides. Whereas just now, there is none of that. It's like, well, we've been across the back four. Let's just shovel it across the other side and see if somebody stops running or the opposition stop running. Maybe they get bored, maybe they'll fall asleep, and we'll be able to run through them. I just don't think the players are capable of actually doing it, and that's given Russell Martin the benefit of the doubt by saying that. But also, he's the guy that brought most of these players in. You can't actually say this is Clement's team in any way, shape, or form, simply because of the amount of changes he's made.
No, and to be fair, second half we actually started to get a wee bit of joy more down the left hand side than anything else. And this is before we touch on the goal. This is one thing that I will say that frustrates the bloody life out of me, being a Rangers fan. How many times have we seen a fullback getting booked early in a game, and then we never ever try and pile the pressure on? And it was exactly the same as the guy Gassama was up against Bruges. I can't remember when he picked up the booking, but we then seemed so hesitant to give the ball to Gassama because he had the beating of him to go and just keep attacking him in the hope that he maybe gets sent off. But
I agree in that. I agree in that.
That's where the goal comes from, that left hand side. And I thought Gassama and Magoma, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. If I'm not, people can select me in the comments. Built up a good partnership. Actually, they seem to click a little bit in that second half, and obviously that's where the goal comes from, where they both link up well, and it's a bit of an overlap for the left back. Puts a great ball on a plate for Danilo just to get a simple tap in. But that I thought it was a pretty promising first kind of 60 odd minutes that we saw from the boy at left back.
Right.
And he was one of the few players that I think actually probably walked away with pass marks, him and Gassama, because obviously he grew into the game in the second half and was a constant thorn on the Bruges side. But we look like that might be a decent player, but we still need experience across that team, don't we?
Yeah, I think Bruges after the first 20 minutes looked as if they were saving themselves for the Belgian version of St Mirren this weekend. They looked as if they'd done enough, and and knew the tie was all but over. Because again, I mean, Rangers could go out there and go for it and get taken apart again. It's almost asking for it, because they're a far better side than a lot of people were giving them credit for. Once again, I have to say, history is a great thing because you learn by your mistakes. History is also an absolute, loser at times, because you reflect on games previously. Scott Nisbet, as far as I could see, wasn't anywhere near Ibrox and wasn't going to score a goal that he did way back in 1992-93 season. So why keep showing it saying Rangers are a great victory 32 years ago against Bruges? It counted for nothing. Bruges have been a Champion League team, and a very good one. They're also selling players, their best talent, for 20, 30, 40 million quid. That's the level that Bruges were at. And I don't think enough people recognise that.
No, they are a really good, decent side. And I think it's interesting what you say, because they've kind of gone through that process of, buying players and selling them maybe for 5-6 million and reinvesting them in, selling them for 10-15 million, and then getting to the point now where they are, making a decent bit of cash on player sales to be able to reinvest. And they are a decent side. I think the frustrating thing from our point of view is the fact that, being 180 minutes away from potentially getting to the riches of the groups, the league stage now, as they call it, it was a really, really good opportunity for us. We can't say Martin hasn't been back from a transfer fee point of view. The big problem that we've got is that we are still reliant on the likes of Danilo to lead the line, and other players within the squad who maybe haven't served us as best over the past few seasons. But it was always going to take time for him to kind of try and implement the way that he wants to play. But you've also got to balance that by getting results in the short term.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get results, at least showing performances. And I've seen a lot of people obviously trying to talk about Ange Postecoglou when he came in at Celtic. The difference is when they dropped all those points, they had 2-6-0 victories back to back in that period. So at least their fans could buy into it a little bit to say, at least we can see good attacking football, that we're going to score a lot of goals. At the moment, Rangers seem to be too wide open and giving up too many chances to the opposition. We don't exactly seem to be creating many opportunities to be able to score from. And we're already dropping points in the league, and face a tough away fixture, because St Mirren aren't going to be any mugs, and we'll touch on them. A tough away fixture in Bruges midweek, and then a home game against Celtic. That's a run of games that, whether Russell Martin wants to admit it or not, will define his potential career at Rangers, because God forbid we drop points on Sunday and then we drop further points against them when they come to Ibrox.
And then he's got an international break when anything can happen. As used to stay in Stingray, anything could happen in the next half hour. And then he comes back, plays Hearts, which you have to say they've started the season much better than Rangers have. And then you go into a League Cup tie
against
Hibs. So your season might not be completely over, but a huge wrecking ball might get through your season. And at that point in time, it will not matter what Russell Martin's mammy thinks. It will not matter what he's saying at press conference and saying, I'm nearly getting it right. It will not matter a damn about what loan players are coming in. It's good to see that Phillips is going to Oxford. I never knew they needed another guy in their boat for the boat race. But that, you mentioned that there about the transfers, buying guys in for 2, 3, 4, 5 million, selling them for 10 million, 12 million. Great model to have. You've got to have the recruitment, the recruitment buying on to be able to do that when money is scarce. And again, I look at it just now and you think to yourself, yeah, there are players there that Rangers have spent money on that might come good. But intertwining them with guys that you're bringing in on loan who know they're going back to a bigger and a better team or club than they're at just now. They're out there for experience. Or if they did really, really well, would they get a move to Rangers? And if they did, would they want it?
I know, but I think that you look at how much surgery had to be done on the squad, though. There was always going to be loans that would have to play a part in the team, unfortunately. Yeah. I think some of the criticism will be the Mulligan transfer, for instance. That was tied up. It was obviously a cop and deal in the new kind of ownership team and sporting team decided against it. He's obviously scored an absolute peach for Hibs and then scored again. So it kind of almost looks like here's what you could have won. I think, to be fair to some of the signings, Gassama for 2.2 million quid looks a player. Fact he's more than paid his fee back with the goals that he scored to get his past Pana and stuff like that. We obviously haven't seen much of Asgard. I think Ant-Man looks like he could be decent, but as you say, we've got to give it time. The jury's still out in Rothwell. I still can't believe that he hasn't been able to last a full 90 minutes yet, and in some games he doesn't look like the fittest of players. But I think the key thing for us, and Martin mentioned it today, is now getting experience through the door. And what we really need is experience in winning, because we need somebody that's been there and trod that path before, so that they can be the ones that, whether they've got the captain's armband on the pitch or not, can pull the rest of the team up to say, fucking grip yourself. Yeah, we might have conceded, we might have just gifted them a goal, but we've got to regroup and we've got to give ourselves a shake, because there's still 80 minutes to go. We can get back into the game and we can keep it tight. Don't just gift them another goal 2 minutes later.
Right. I mean, the opening 20 minutes. I mean, I thought the worst performance I've seen from Rangers in recent times against Unaria, the Romanians. Remember, 4-1 game. And, I thought they were a very good team and they took Rangers apart. And I thought that was but Wednesday night was as bad as I can remember it, it being. I was thinking back to games against the likes of against Gornick way back. And when Rangers are 3-1 down for the first, they get a goal back through Jim Baxter, and you're thinking, right, this is it. We're going to see something a bit special now. No, they get beat 3-1 in that game as well. And there's a measure of how bad Rangers have been in European performances. I think that game the other night there, just because the place went so flat, really flat, because of the hammer blows that were dealt early on in the tie. It wasn't like 1-0, then another goal at half time, then another goal right at the end. It was just bang, bang, bang. And when that happens, I don't think there's any way back. Yeah, Rangers played a bit better in the second half, but I think Bruce had their eyes elsewhere.
And we need to touch on the kind of back end of that second half, because we obviously get the ball in the back of the net again on the 77th minute. Gassama being the pain in the backside that he was down that left hand side for the second half, and it's great work for him, great tenacity to not lose the ball, twisting and turning to get away from the defender. And Mignolet obviously spills the initial shot and he kind of taps it in. I guess where I was sitting, we're the opposite end of that stadium, so you don't really see Mignolet getting his hands on the ball potentially. And there's that VAR review, and then it gets cut off, chopped off. Now, it was only in the presser after the game that Martin alluded to the fact that VAR really only showed the referee a still from it and not actual video. It really wasn't inconclusive. It really wasn't conclusive whether he had control of the ball before Gassama nips in and gets it away. And decisions like that potentially change the game, because we'd put Bruges under a little bit of pressure. Still wasn't perfect, but if that goal gets given, all of a sudden it's 3-2, and then the crowd's up on its tail a wee bit, because there was a bit of a rebound in the stadium after we scored, and the crowd started to get behind the team again. If it gets to 3-2, it could turn that a little bit.
Yeah, I thought Rangers were unfortunate with the decision. But I've got a very simple kind of rule of thumb. If it'd been another way about, would you have been shouting foul on the goalkeeper? Yes. No further questions, Your Honour. That's as simple as it gets. I think it was one of those where it's open to debate. If it goes for you, oh, it was a great decision. If it goes against you, it's a poor decision. And that it just basically encapsulated the night that Rangers were having. And when they get the ball and the goals again, it's kind of under dubious circumstances as to whether it was or wasn't a foul. Personally, I thought it was soft, but you see him giving all the time.
Aye. And then the last wee bit of controversy for the game was the potential penalty shout. And I need to give a big shout out to Dougie Kinnear, once of this parish. I don't know if you've seen any of the replays, but he's on TV claiming, making the signs. It's hilarious. If you get to see it, go and watch it.
I thought it was Jack Tatty from all those years ago in another mime movie. Marcel Marceau, Shape of a Bird.
It was brilliant. But again, opposite end for me. So we didn't really get a clear view of it in the stadium. But when I've seen it back, the defender doesn't touch the ball at all. No. In my opinion, and he comes right through the back of him. The one thing I couldn't believe was it didn't even go to VAR for a check. By the looks of it.
There are anomalies, let's say, when it comes to VAR and their input, and when they have that input and when they don't have the input. And again, that is right across the board in football. Rangers can feel upset, but there'll be anything like 20 or 30 clubs, across Europe last week that will feel upset at various decisions not going their way. All I'll say is that the second half was brighter from Rangers. That's about it. It wasn't worldy or anything like that. It was brighter. But then again, after the first 20 minutes, anything was going to be better.
And I think that's why, I mean, going back on my supporters bus, there was a lot of anger, and basically people saying he better not try and wrap up that second half as excusing the first. And it was quite funny because when I listened to the post match, it was almost as if he was saying, "I we were brilliant in the second half. Forget the first half." And I was like, he wasn't really doing himself any favours with that, because ultimately, you could say we get back into the game because Bruges took their foot off the gas. Yeah, there was some really good play from us. Jack Butland was probably still the busier of the two keepers in that second half. They still created chances. So I think there is still a lot of work to do. And it's going to be interesting to see how we react on Sunday, because during the presser today, he obviously touched on the anger around the performances and the reaction to his appointment at the role. And this is where I do feel I have a bit of sympathy for Martin, because there is a section of the fan base that I think are just looking for any excuse to have a go. And regardless of what happens, whether results improve and stuff, he was not their choice for the job, so therefore they're not really willing to give him a chance. But I think the only way that he's ever going to change that and change people's mind is A, we start to see performances on the pitch, and B, we start to see results that match those performances. And if he starts to do that, then at least the majority of the fan base will get on side with him. I think the only pleasing thing for me was the fact that he seems to be a strong enough character to block out that type of noise and not let it impact him a little bit.
That worries me. That worries me though. That worries me. If you can switch off, and basically say, no, I'm not listening to this, and you know how things bad are actually out in the pitch, you could end up in a really, really bad place by somebody who sticks to his guns and doesn't change and says, I'm fantastic. Look at my PowerPoint presentation. Isn't that good? That really worries me. I was in Talk Sport on Wednesday. It would be doing the kind of post-mortem in the game. And I said then that, he could turn out to be, the next great European coach or manager. I don't know. I don't see any signs of it just now. But the fact is, he started off in a bad place at Rangers because fans were underwhelmed by his appointment. It was almost like, you wait to see the new car I bring home. You'll never believe what I'm going to bring home. You wait to see this. Everybody will be talking about it. What do you mean it's an Allegro? It's that, and that's what it was like when he was, opened up to the press and the public that day. It was like, no, we've seen what he can do. Now, unless there's a Russell Martin 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever it is waiting in the wings, just to, unleash this fantastic talent he'll have as a coach and a manager and as an instigator and as a mentor to so many of these guys, then the jury is out, except the jury is already sitting there with the wee bits of paper, make notes. This guy is guilty. And that is a really difficult position or place to come back from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I say, I mean, I think the only way he's going to be able to change opinion of folk is by starting to get performances and results. And regardless of styles of play and systems, it's about winning. It's about getting points. It's about getting through knockout ties. And to be fair, I think we're disappointed. I mean, I'm absolutely gutted the way that we played in that first half against Bruges, but we all thought Panathinaikos was going to be the big test, and we got through that by the skin of our teeth because Butland had a really good couple of legs, and we'd probably done enough we'd done enough in the first leg.
Are those the legs that stopped moving on Wednesday night when he didn't run out for the ball? Those legs.
The best comment I've seen about that was it was like when your PlayStation controller runs out of batteries and your keeper's kind of stuck and I think that, going back to that point though, this is where the communication comes in. Suter's got the captain's armband. He could be shouting at Jigga to say, man on, keep running. Butland makes a move as if he's coming to get the ball, and if he continues coming, he probably gets there in plenty of time because he's making up less ground than that attacker's got to make up. Again, you can't really legislate for people having mind farts like that, and I'm trying my best not to swear so that we don't get any stuff with it. But it's
thanks for that, Russell. Anyway, moving on. The other thing I said it earlier, you cannot legislate for Jigger stopping.
Aye.
You know, even if he chases him back, even if he jumps on the guy's back and gets sent off, you're still in the game at 0-0. You know, you've still got half a chance instead of just, oh no, on you go, pal.
I think that the other positive thing that happened during the press was obviously confirmed that there's going to be more players coming in. We've obviously just got, we're going to be rumoured to get the guts of about 9 million quid in the door for Jesse and Ridvan if he ever signs for Besiktas after the longest 3-year announcement of a transfer I think I've ever seen in my life. And we've got out, we've loaned out Ben Davies and the lesser spotted Jose Cifuentes, who's going to enjoy the lovely sunny weather in Toronto because it's too cold from here in Glasgow. Good luck with that one.
That one there with the Jeffy, if they get that amount of money, is not bad business. Ridvan has been threatening to leave, or the prospect of him leaving has been there. You're right. He literally signed at Ibrox and was then rumoured to be leaving as soon as he walked through the door. It was like a matter of weeks into the job at Rangers. It's like he's not happy here. He's going back. He's just looking for a club elsewhere, and it's just been so long running. It's not a surprise to see him go. I said there have been better players. There have been more committed players. I still wish him well. I just think he's another one of a very, very long list of players who have been at Rangers in the last 8-9 years who will probably go away and look an absolute world beater somewhere else, but has been dragged down by the mess that Rangers have been under different managers.
Right, and his injury issues as well. I think, far too unreliable, not available for selection enough.
Who's that we're talking about? Narrow it down a bit for me. No, Roof is gone. He's away. He left a while ago.
I think the other thing that I took, again, I'm trying to always look for positives, was the fact that he talked about bringing experience and needing to have that a compliment. He obviously alluded that he was trying to get somebody in, which we all think was Cody, but realistically, from my personal opinion, I think we need another left back. We definitely need a left centre half, and God forbid we might ever actually sign a quality striker. Do you think that's what we can expect over the course of the next, is it going to be a week and a bit, or do you think there might be more than that coming through the door?
I don't know.
Well, in an ideal world, what would you like to see?
A bus with 23 players on it who previously won the World Cup in Brazil in 1970. No, listen, it's all I'll say is, and again, this comes down to recruitment, and it's okay saying, we want experienced players. You could count up and tot up the experienced players that have come through the door at Rangers and done absolutely nothing. In fact, they've left the place in a bigger mess. Exhibit A, Joey Barton. Exhibit B, Senderos. Umpteen after that have done the same thing. It's almost like I've got 12 months still left in my legs. I think, in fact, Jack Butland, but I've got 12 months still left in my legs. I think I can do it in Scotland. It'll be a lot easier without realising that every game you enter into in Scotland as a Rangers player is going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. Because for every team, it's the other opposition's cup final, regardless of what people say. they want to put one over on Rangers, whether it's Alloa or St Mirren or Dundee. They don't care. You look at what happened with Dundee the other week there, or Motherwell the other week there. They actually fancied beating Rangers, and that is something that should not be happening. Teams should be fearful of you rather than the other way about.
And that was a lovely segue by the pro of Gersnet that you are into talking about the battle that we've got coming up on Sunday against St Mirren. We've obviously got
We scripted that for 6 hours. We've been in rehearsals. You've grown a beard in that time. I've had my makeup changed 3 times. I've got my Carluccio hair on. Come on, hurry up, get into it. I've been waiting.
Sorry, mate. So we've got no Dessel or Egerman. Certainly Egerman's not fit to start, which is really frustrating, which means that we're going to be left with Danilo starting up front. Ziga's going to be suspended, so Fernandez is probably going to come into the team. I guess my worry about this game is the fact that set pieces are a weakness, and you've got a certain Gogic that's in that St Mirren team that I think will ragdoll half of our players about. He's certainly going to mark Danilo out the game because, we saw in the third goal with a boy who just kind of almost barged through Danilo to get on the end of that ball before he scored a worldie, that he's not the physical striker that is going to be there to hold up and hold off defenders. He's better playing as a 2. How do you think he'll line up at the weekend? And how do you think we're going to cope with the threat of people like Gogic and stuff in that team, because they'll just roll their sleeves up and outwork us? I'd
like to see 2 banks of 7. I think that might give them half a chance. Okay, man, that's rugby. You cannot. Funny enough, I was speaking to somebody today, and this was something we touched upon about how players are identified now, and all the sort of videos and analysis and all the rest of it. And you can get the best CV you've ever seen and the best video edit of some of these players. See, still you actually watch people and you realise what they've got in there. Have you got any heart, son? Are you up for this one? Are you up for the fight? Are you up for how tough this is going to be? Yeah. And I it's hard watching a Rangers team that doesn't have that. Because even years ago, way back, when some of the Rangers teams weren't very good, they still had that heart and that fight in them. And I mean, some of them, that's what they did best, was fight. That's another story entirely. But they just don't have that. The chins get nailed to the chest far too easily. The heads go down, and there's that look of bewilderment, almost like, you see what that big boy did to me? We'll go and do it back, And I think that bit of it is something you can't instill that in somebody. They've either got it, or they don't. And if they don't have it, what the hell are they doing and playing in your team? Because you need that. You may have skillful players, but people talk about Rangers had this player and that player, and the next. Rangers had guys who were harder and tougher than you could ever believe. Record goal scorer, Ali McCoist. McCoist was a street fighter. McCoist would batter people, and punch pals on the pitch, but he would be a winner and he'd score goals. I'm not saying you can do that now because of the amount of cameras, but you're looking for some willingness to take the fight to the opposition and not just sit in your arse and say, "Oh, woe is me."
Absolutely, mate. And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I think there is potentially a player in Rothwell that we just haven't seen yet. I'd probably take him out the team. Dio was just anonymous on Tuesday. I'd drop him, and I think the team that Frankie put out earlier on Twitter probably is the way that I would line up. Magoma, Fernandez, Suter, Tav as the back 4, Raskin, Asgard, and Cameron. I've been quite impressed with Cameron with the effort and stuff that he's put in. He's at least tried to link up play, and he's looked pretty decent with that Mangastama.
Imagine Rangers signing a Scottish player. I mean, shock horror. Imagine there's players like that right under your nose. and you can only find one of them, and there's other guys kicking about there that would equally have done a job and a better job than some of the players that come in either on loan or for a fee. It's always been the way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd agree with that. But as you say, the thing that we need to be up for is the fight. I remember the comments that Martin made about how not being outworked and not being outfought, etc. We've yet to see evidence of that, and I think this is where, as somebody who was willing to give him a chance, wasn't exactly excited by the appointment, but was getting behind him because he's not going to go anywhere in the short term. He's been given the job, he's been given the back, and it's increasingly chipping away at my potential glass half full.
It was Thirlwell. It was Thirlwell that said all those things, wasn't it? Thirlwell said, "We'll fight and we'll press and we'll show this and we'll do this and we'll do all the next thing." For anybody that's watching tonight, Trading Standards Scotland, they're on 0808 164 6000. Phone them up and ask for your season ticket money back, because they do not bear any resemblance to what you were promised.
I don't know what's more alarming, the fact that you're telling people to go and get their season ticket money back, or the fact that you actually know the Trading Standards number off by heart.
It's not because I wrote it down.
It's almost like you prepared for this shit.
Hey, I do. I've been on here make up that I told you earlier.
Oh, brilliant, mate. So the last question.
1-0. 1-0 away from home. I'll say it every week. I should just get a wee board in front of me, or a wee menu goes across the front of the screen here. Stewart says 1-0 to Rangers.
Do you actually think we're going to keep a clean sheet? That's amazing.
Well, listen,
revise that 5-4.
No. I just you're then assuming that they're actually going to score that many goals. No, Winston Churchill once said one is enough. And I think there's a chance of hanging on, even with that defence. There's a chance of hanging on and Butland having a worldie again. So you might win 1-0. And honestly, it's at that time in those circumstances just now, just grind out a win. Yeah. Doesn't matter how nice it is. Doesn't matter, And I go back again, another history lesson. Rangers lost the first day under Souness and lost 2-1. To Hibs. The next game that Rangers played, they absolutely wiped the floor with Falkirk 1-0. Yeah. And Souness said it after that game. A win, we take it, we go into the next game. They lost the next game, right? That's another story. But the fact of the matter is, there are times where you're not looking for perfection, anything, but all you're looking for is a result that you can basically say, we've done it once, we can do it again.
Absolutely, mate. I think that's it as well. It's just F1 for me. I don't care how. I don't care what the score is. As long as you walk away from Paisley, with 3 points in the bag, I think that's all we can really ask for, and that's all we want at the moment. So, we'll bring the show to an end on that bombshell, mate. I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on again, mate. It's always great to chat with you. Thanks very much, mate.
I see you as my therapist.
Well, let's hope we don't actually have to do another pod like this again for a while, mate. And actually, the next time we're on together, we can speak about a positive result. That would be the best thing for us.
A Jamie Vardy hat trick takes Rangers into the semi-finals of the Europa League. Yeah,
brilliant. As well as being live on YouTube tonight, folks, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms. That's iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, etc. As well in the coming days. There's going to be no show on Sunday. We'll be back next Friday, reviewing the away game with Bruges and looking ahead to the first Old Firm game. Ben will be your host, and he will be joined by the OG, Alex Anderson. Have a good night, folks. Appreciate for listening, and thanks again for all those who are watching back.